Welcome, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. Today, we're talking about the power of prayer and how those prayers were miraculous for Bryce Newman and his family in their battle against his aggressive brain cancer, a very rare cancer. And this morning, we talk about not only the power of prayer, but how the miracles continue to happen. Their story has now been made into a movie. We welcome, for the very first time to our show, Bryce and his dad, Richard Newman. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome.
Hey, good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. God bless.
Absolutely. And so let me start with you, Bryce. So you're probably at about 15 years old when you start to notice some things happening in your body, I guess, that you find abnormal. Tell us about that.
Right. So we just wrapped up high school, freshman year of high school. That was also the spring, and so it was baseball season. And I we just finished we just what is it? Got our high school's first city championship. So the first ever championship. And I hit the walk off for that one. So I hit the game winner.
Mm-hmm.
And summer was looking pretty good. That was the end of classes. It was a big stress relief for me. And I was not the lowest on the totem pole as far as the high school rankings at that time. So I was happy.
Uh-huh.
And I began, I'd say, getting these headaches that caused me to miss some practices over summer, which I rarely do.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, we kept going back to the hospital and kept getting turned down. And this one time, we went to the hospital. Dad just refused to get turned down
Mm-hmm.
this time around, and they finally did a scan on me and told me I had to do emergency brain surgery in 6 hours or whatever it was. I think it was like 2 a.m. at the time we got in there, and then they
Mm-hmm.
had to do a brain surgery at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. And they sat me down and they're like, "Hey, the biopsies come back and you have cancer." So
Wow. Let me stop you right there. So Richard, I'm sure that you all had to be thinking that these are just, were you thinking that these headaches were severe, or did you just think that this was something that maybe migraine, something passing, nothing as serious as cancer though, huh?
No, we didn't think it was cancer in any way, shape, or form. We've been, like Bryce said, we've been actually to the emergency room 4 different times, and the doctors, made it sound like, hey, it's just this, it's a normal thing, but he had never gotten migraines. They were migraines to him, and debilitating. He'd have to go lay down.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the fifth time around, it was either the fourth or fifth time, we actually did speak to her. A friend of mine, it was in the movie, Sue Wilson, said, "Hey, let me let you speak to a friend that's the head of neurology at Sharps Hospital, which is right next to the Children's Hospital Bryson went to." And the guy said, "Hey, look, something's not right here. You gotta make sure, like Bryce said, don't let him give you a Tylenol and just say it's a stress headache. It's not. Something's more is going on." So that's how
Mm-hmm.
that came about.
And so when the scans come back and they find this cancer, how do you guys even begin to process that?
So for me, it was I made this baseball team for the summer, and it was called Team USA San Diego, and we were making our end of the summer kind of tournament, and we were playing in Japan. And for me, when I got that initial kind of like, "Hey, you got a brain tumor," it was just I told the doctor this. I was like, "Hey, just sew me up. I got a flight to catch in a week or whatever it was." And so yeah, I was completely confident that I would be fine.
So did you
And
understand though, Bryce? I mean, at 15 years old, you kind of know about cancer, but does your 15-year-old self kind of understand that not only do you have cancer, but it's in your brain at that time, you think, when you look back on it now?
when I look back on it now, probably not the most, but at the time, I felt like I practice makes perfect. Having that athletic mindset that just I don't know, everything. Some things are going to be bad, but you just got to forget about it and go on to the next thing and try and do that as best as you can. So that was, the feeling for me. I was like, okay, this cancer is a bad thing, or this tumor is a bad thing in my brain. The doctors need to get rid of it, and then I got to go head on this tournament.
And I guess this Japanese league, is that kind of like the Little League World Series, but maybe in Japan?
Yeah, it's I think there was like 20 countries or 30 countries or whatever that all had a team, and so I got to go represent the United States, and that was
Wow.
fun.
There were 32 countries in that, Carlette, and he actually is downplaying a little bit. He literally, I kid you not, in the emergency room at 2 a.m. when the doctor came back in after the CAT scan and said, "You've got a tumor. We've got to operate." They didn't know at the time it's cancerous because they have to do a biopsy.
Okay.
It could be a benign tumor,
Uh-huh.
but literally, and so I don't think he kind of grasped it. Maybe he did, but he looks at the doctor when she says, "Got a brain tumor. You got to operate to save your life."
Mhm.
It's 7 a.m. He literally said, "That's okay, doc. Just sew me up tight. I have a plane to catch in 2 weeks to
Wow.
Japan to cheer on my teammates." And then that's when the doctor told him that she said that, "Hey, you're not going to be able to go to Japan." That's actually when he started crying. Not that he had a tumor in his head.
Wow.
He couldn't go to Japan.
So what do you and your wife, how do you guys process, okay, there's a tumor at 2 a.m. in the morning, y'all been going back and forth, to the doctor, and they're brushing it off as nothing, and now you get this scan that says he's got a tumor. What goes through your mind at that point?
It buckled my knees. I can tell you that. I started welling up. I'm trying to be tough for my kid, and he's the tougher one. Actually, obviously saying what he said to the doctor, it puts you in a tailspin. You just don't understand it. You can't. You literally can't. You can't process. You're going, "Oh my God, hope it's benign. Please God, make it benign." And then we got the news about 2 days after the surgery that the doctor did say, "Hey, look, where this tumor is, it's normally a strain of brain cancer called medulloblastoma," which is what it was. But she said, "I just want to prepare you. That's, we don't know yet. It can be benign, but that is the normal area of medulloblastoma." And that's what it ended up being. We found out a couple of days after the biopsy.
And then after the biopsy comes back and you know what it is, what does she say about the prognosis?
Well, it started off with so medulloblastoma is the most common form of brain cancer in pediatric brain cancer, but it's a very aggressive brain cancer. You got to basically they give you a 5 years out life expectancy. So at that time, medulloblastoma, the one that at the beginning, he had a 65% chance of survival 5 years out. But then they do the biopsy. They find out that the strain they have 4 different strains of medulloblastoma. He had strain C, which it's the most difficult and most aggressive of the four strains. So he had medulloblastoma strain C, and that's got about a 50% chance of survival 5 years out. So that was the original. And then, unfortunately, after the standard of care and the second brain surgery, his tumor started to grow again. That's when they came back with once you've gone through standard of care, if this tumor starts to grow, you got about a 5% chance of surviving 5 years out.
Wow, hold that thought. We'll take a break here, but when we come back, we'll talk about the questions that the family asks and making the decisions on this horrible prognosis. Every parent's nightmare. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. Our guests this morning are Richard and Bryce Newman. They are father and son. They're native Louisianians, and they're sharing their story of prayer, the power of prayer, and the never say die spirit. And so before we went to break, it kind of just takes your breath away to hear that you go from headaches to, okay, it could be cancer, and then it's an aggressive cancer, a rare form of cancer. But then the numbers and the percentages get even smaller for survival. when your family gets all of this news, first of all, do you all, Richard, decide we're going to tell Bryce exactly what's going on? That's my first question.
I wanted to hide him from that, but the doctors don't do that. So they wouldn't allow that. They basically told him it's cancer, brain cancer. And at that age, basically he was a month away from being 16. So he can process at that point. So he knew what the fight that he was in had. I don't think anybody at that age really knows cancer unless they dealt with it, which we hadn't in the family. But he knows, obviously, I assume we'll ask him, but he knew it was serious at that point.
Right. So what are you thinking, Bryce, when they like head on tell you not only is this cancer, but it's aggressive, and they're talking to you as you're like an adult, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah, I knew it was serious, when they told me it was cancer. And to me, I go back to that, playing sports all my life, just having that mindset where it's like, okay, I'm going to be kind of out, or whatever you want to call it, on the bench for baseball players. And it's like, okay, I need to get back to where I was and get back on the field. So I knew that I was going to be in the hospital for some time, but, I just thought of how I can get better.
Wow. And so, Richard, when they tell you that there is going to have to be a second surgery, and the chances for any type of longevity go down because of the strain of cancer that he has, how do you and your family process that away from Bryce?
A lot of crying. I mean, you're just crying. I think I can tell you this, that, I actually, Carlette, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's part of life, right? So I'm going to wear the cross if I have to on it, but I'd given up on faith. I believed in God and Jesus, but I'd given up that there was any, he's our only child, and he's a phenomenal kid. Very respectful to everybody, very kind, thinks of others first, type of thing you want to do in Christianity. But I'd given up on God. I literally was in the back stairwell at 2 a.m. when he'd be asleep, because I slept in his room every night. I'd be yelling up at God, and I literally would be saying that I don't know whether I'm going to be looking at you eye to eye, or probably more likely screaming at you from below. But we're going to have a meeting about this, because I put this on me, not him. So you just break down. I mean, you show the strength you have to when you're in the room with him, but when you're out of the room, at least for me, and I know for Nicole, his mother, we broke down. It's processing that, because you understand you understand the fight that he's in, and brain cancer. I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's tough till this day to know what he went through.
Yeah, I can't even. It's every parent's and every family's nightmare. When we hear the word cancer, we do tend to think about death. And so after you get angry and you're mad at God, what are the next steps? Because now he has to have surgery again. You understand what the doctors are saying about his prognosis. Where do you go from there?
Well, I mean, you had asked in the break about what we did as faith, and I can tell you we went. I mean, which is another thing that kind of puts guilt on you. Why? Wait, you're saying you went to faith because you're sick? Yeah, that's true. And maybe we should have done more beforehand. It's not like we went to church every Sunday, but we don't know. But we went, right. I mean, like, we visited the San Juan Capistrano mission a few times, lighting candles, trying to understand that things don't work out. You've got there is a place for you, son, and it's going to be phenomenal. And so it's hard to talk. It's hard to talk about it now, to be honest with you. But
it's hard to hear, because your child is at, he's just not even really beginning life, and living his dream of playing baseball and doing what high school kids do. And so what are you thinking, Bryce, when they give you all of this news? Are you thinking, I'll be able to beat it? Or are you thinking, is this the end of my life? What are you thinking at that time?
Right. There was definitely times, I mean, later in the hospital where I was like, is this going to be the end? But yeah, during the initial kind of tumor removal surgery and the cancer diagnosis and everything, I kind of knew that he's got this. Um, I was confident in myself, and I was like, okay, I got to get through every day, but I can kind of put the back like on the treatments and everything, right? The surgeries and treatments and all that stuff on the back burner, and be like, okay, God's going to take care of that. I need to, take care of what I'm going to do to entertain myself, or what I'm going to eat next, or whatever it is. And so yeah, I was confident that God's got this, and He had a plan, and it just was going a little bit slower than some people would like.
What do you think, Bryce, gave you that confidence in God at not even quite 16? What do you think that was?
I don't know if I can put a finger on exactly what it was, but maybe just from, going to the church and being around that, and hearing teachings and stuff like that about like all the good that He does. I would say that would probably be a factor into what it was exactly, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I kind of felt like I don't know. It's hard to explain. Maybe I just feel like He's got this. He's
Wow.
going to take care of it.
And were you able to relay that assurance to your parents?
Uh, Probably not the best.
Hmm.
I'm sure they were taking it harder than I was.
Hmm.
I don't, probably not the best.
So Richard, like when he's saying, God's got this and I'm gonna be okay, were you guys able to sort of trust that, okay, maybe He knows something?
It's, the things that we found out after the fact, like how much confidence he had. And I believe, looking back in hindsight, obviously is 2020, as we all know, but looking back at it, I believe that because of what God, and we firmly believe God came down that day and touched Bryce on his shoulder the day of the prayer, because of the way, when you get into how he felt, when you hear that, if it doesn't put goosebumps on you, I don't know what does. Every time I hear it, it does for me. And I've heard it a bunch of times, but I think God had a plan and basically was saying, Bryce, I'm going to make sure you feel confident about it, because He did. And not to worry, I've got you, because I've got something more special for you to do in life. And I think He is doing that right now. So,
Wow, amazing. When we come back, we'll talk about the prayer that changes Bryce's life, your family's life, and probably all those who witnessed. Stay with us. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. Our guests this morning are Richard and Bryce Newman, and we're talking about their miraculous story. The movie was made, and it's entitled Miracle at Manchester. But first, we're talking about before the miracle happened. And, we kind of understand how you find out about the cancer that Bryce has, and what the reactions are. But how does this prayer at Manchester come about? Richard, tell us about that.
So Bryce's tumor, after standard of care, which is the finishing of chemo. So they went resection, radiation, then chemo. And after that, the tumor, the enhancement, they called it, because they don't know if it's tumor until they go in and biopsy whatever it is. But if it starts to grow, there's nothing that grows in your brain that's positive, and they know it's a tumor at that point. So the enhancement that they were looking at in the MRI scan started to grow. Unfortunately, that puts us, because he had standard of care, we can't do that again, because for a child, it'll kill him, too much poison in him. So we were looking at experimental trials, and we were headed down to one that was in Florida that Bryce was accepted in. And his beautiful woman at Cathedral Catholic High School, Ann Major is her name, calls me up and goes, "Hey, prior to you guys going, we'd like to have Bryce come and do a lunch at a lunch with his basically his friends, right? His favorite friend, his little clique, before you guys leave, and basically kind of a say goodbye to them as much, because you don't know what's going to happen down there anyway. So that's how that came about. But Bryce can go as to what happened with the lunch and how that transpired with Ann.
Tell
Yeah.
us about
So
that day, Bryce, that the lunch is planned and the prayer is, I guess, planned. Or is the prayer planned?
right. So there was a they connected with me or with dad, and then anyway, that my parents drove me to my high school, and I got there, and there was like no one out. For some reason, it was like the school is set up so like you walk in the front gates and you see all the classrooms and all the buildings, and then you walk to your right and it's down there is like a football stadium, so you don't really see it at first, right? And anyway, so I get there and I was looking at the school and there was no one out and about, so I'm like, oh, they must be in their classes. And then my parents started. I was in a wheelchair at the time, so my parents started wheeling me down to the football stadium. And I'm like, this is weird. Like all my like they're probably in classes. I don't know why you're wheeling me down. And then anyway, we got down to the football stadium. Everyone's wearing their red t-shirts. I'm in my white t-shirt because that's just what I usually wear. And anyway, and so it was a complete surprise. And all what was it, 1,700 or 1,800 students were there, plus the faculty, and it was great. And then they plopped me down right in the middle, and I had all 1,700 or whatever students around me, and they began doing this prayer over me. And the only way I can relate it is when you take clothes out of a dryer and immediately put them on.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like that, but obviously, right, it's when you put the t-shirt or whatever it is out of the dryer and you put it on, it's an external feeling of warmth. For me, it felt like an internal feeling, like it was kind of radiating from within. And yeah, it felt very great.
Wow. And so you've got 1,700 people coming together and they're praying, and at that moment it sounds like you feel the power of that prayer. When you leave that place in that moment, what are you thinking?
I didn't know what it was. For me, I thought I was overheating, and I was,
Wait,
yeah,
no, Carlette, I swear, in the car, he literally would get in the car with his mom and I, and he literally says, "Oh boy, guys, you're not going to believe this. I got so nervous during the prayer, I was starting to sweat. I thought I was going to pass out." And so we're making a joke of it because we didn't know what was going on, and didn't comprehend. And we
Right.
just look, well, see, you were the star of the party. Everybody was looking at you. I'm glad you didn't pass out.
Right.
But that's literally what happened when he got in the car.
Wow. And so when do you know that the miracle of prayer has happened, Richard? When did your family know?
Well, like I said, Bryce kind of knew. He knew. He said he even during the prayer for some reason he kind of knew. He didn't. In the movie, they say it is done, which never happened. That's Hollywood,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
exaggerating. But he said he felt it. He just felt confident that he was going to be okay. We didn't know until the second MRI and the next MRI came out, which we were headed down, like I said, to Florida, and they called us. The doctors called us back and told us that the enhancement that had been growing had now shrunk to a level where they said that we kind of think he's going to be cancer free. And then the following follow-up MRI, there was no enhancement in the tumor bed at all.
Wow. Praise God. And so how do y'all process that? I mean, what's that moment like for you, Bryce, to have that moment and that feeling of warmth as you sort of describe it, and then to hear the doctors when your family's all ready to go down for a clinical trial because they can't do anything else for you. What does that moment feel like?
right. I'm probably not gonna have the best answer because, again, I just go back to I felt like it was gonna happen. Maybe not the tumor being completely gone, but being healed and being like able to go through life again. I feel like that was always going to be a thing.
You know what? I think, Bryce, that is the absolute best answer, because that takes us back to Scripture, that childlike faith that most of us don't have. And so for you and your wife and your family and your extended family, Richard, what does that do for your faith?
Well, it put guilt on me like no other, because like I explained earlier, I was yelling at God and cussing God and why not me? So immediately, but like you said, God has a plan, and if it hadn't been this way, maybe this wouldn't even happen. I mean, Bryce wanted to get out the power of prayer. That's why the subtitle on the movie is The Power of Prayer, and understand that prayer does work. Don't lose faith like I had lost faith, in God. That He does have a plan, and whatever the plan is, that's His plan. But it kind of ended up going. This is why the movie is made, because maybe to help take some guilt off of me, and say, hey, if I can get one person, one family, one father, one mother, one friend from giving up on prayer, if they see this story and they go, hey, prayer does work, then I've accomplished what one of the goals was, to get this movie out. And it also gave Bryce, which I think is maybe why God did have a plan. I mean, does have a plan for Bryce. This movie He allowed, because Bryce isn't a person that likes his story. He's not a guy that likes attention on him. He's not that person, right? And so he has allowed his story to be told as long as he could launch his foundation from it, which is he's done that. And all it does is it's the most beautiful foundation. He basically, it said that, hey, look, you're isolated in the hospital, especially with immunocompromised people, and now with the COVID, you're isolated from friends, from family, and children. That's what they need the most. And so he's giving them iPads to be able to connect with families through Zoom or FaceTime or Google Video, and then also look up nutritional facts on there, how to help themselves. So he launched that foundation. Actually, the first two hospitals we collaborated with are here in Louisiana, which are Children's Hospital New Orleans and Ochsner. But that, I think, is where God has a plan. He's moved us all to where this is what we're doing, giving back and doing God's work is what we think. And it happened because my guilt and Bryce's want and desire to help kids that have walked through the same shoes that he walked through 7 years ago, that are walking through those shoes right now. So God's got a plan, and this is what I believe it all came out to be.
Indeed, God does have a plan, and there is power in agreement. When we come back, we'll answer the question on how this story has become a movie. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to this story of miracles. Not just the miracle of Bryce's healing, but there were so many miracles that happened, around this miracle, Richard. And after Bryce is healed and there's no, the scans show he's cancer free, then how does the movie piece come into the story?
The movie came in about as I was mentioning that, the guilt that I had yelling at God, and then He's saving my son. But like I said, Bryce knew it the whole time. He said, so he was the strength. We were supposed to be, but he was actually the strength and the faith that led us into, like I said, we went to the missions a few times, at San Juan Capistrano mission, to light candles. So it was kind of like, Bryce, let's try and help others. That's what we're put on this earth to do as a good Christian. Let's try and explain to others, show them your story, and that I had lost faith. And obviously, I'm not going to look great in it, with that story. But it's, if I can get another family to stop and not give up on prayer like I had, or give up on faith, not prayer, but faith, then hopefully we have done what we set out to do with the movie. And that's how that came about.
And so do you start shopping the movie? How does the movie, get picked up and, come to life?
We got in touch with a producer, and he does like 20 movies a year. So he liked the story, and got everything done. Bryce had a few things. he wanted to do it in where he produces most of his movies, which are up in West Virginia, in a little town in West Virginia. But Bryce was very adamant the movie is going to be shot in San Diego, where he grew up and at his high school, because he wanted to give praise and glory to his Catholic high school that started this all. So all the scenes were shot there. The whole movie was shot in San Diego. But yeah, that's how it is. We got in touch with a Christian producer.
And so, Bryce, how long now have you been cancer free?
So in July, it will be 7 years. That's the 7-year anniversary.
Wow. And when you look back on what they initially thought your lifespan would be and where you are now, is it gratifying and scary all at the same time? Do you have concern, or do the doctors have concern that there may be a reoccurrence?
Yes, there always is. I've had to deal with some like side effects. I actually had 2 more brain surgeries in my undergrad, where I went to undergrad, and those were from side effects of what are they called? Cavernomas, which are just like your brain's bleeding. Those are, it's mainly side effects now. The tumor is I think it's gone. I think it's dealt with. And now it's just the side effects from treatments.
And so, as a gratitude of God's healing, and I can imagine the faith that grew through this, you all started a foundation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was one of the caveats for getting the movie produced, or getting the movie made. I wanted to start my foundation, and it's always been an idea since I got out of the hospital back in high school. And then this movie kind of created a sturdier platform for me to like officially launch it, So what we do is our mission, we donate iPads, distribute iPads, and to kids in pediatric oncology floors. And that on those iPads, those kids fighting cancer can obviously play games and watch movies and stuff and download books or whatever it is. But more importantly, I feel like the social connectivity is definitely a thing. And, they can hang out with their friends on FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it is. And with the hindsight of still going to college, I know how important education is, especially your nutrition and what you eat. So on there, kids can look up specific information about their types of cancers and how to best fight it after treatments and after they get out of the hospital.
He's being a little modest there, Carlette. I can tell you, we were just at Golisano Children's Hospital in Fort Myers, and literally the head of oncology told Bryce and the other newest board member, her name is Lauren Owens, who was in the movie. She played Riley actually in the movie, but she's friends with Bryce. And he said, look, this child that Bryce was going to give him his iPad, he's had some really bad news over the last 6 months. It's not good. And don't be surprised if he doesn't smile. I haven't seen him smile. Well, Bryce and Lauren came in and gave him that iPad, and we've got the pictures to prove it, ear to ear. And it's not just because, they get a nice little shiny new toy, and everybody wants an Apple product. Don't get me wrong. And I always have to plug, if anybody knows anyone at Apple that is high up in there, please contact us at our website, because it's difficult to get deals with them. But anyway, this kid ear to ear, and it is the iPad, but more importantly, and I know this from Bryce, they just want people to know, they want to know that people care. And when you go in there and give them this and say, hey, we love you, we've got this, God's got this, let's say a prayer. They just feel great about it. They feel warm like Bryce did. So we're doing, as I believe, God's work, but with this foundation, which is the foundation website is www.miraclemanchester.org. Real simple.
And tell people how they can find The Miracle at Manchester, the movie.
Yeah, so it's available to purchase on Amazon Prime Video and it's streaming on PureFlix for a little bit. So yeah, you can go to those two platforms and check it out.
Yeah, go to PureFlix. PureFlix has a promotion going on where you can watch it for free, basically. So go to PureFlix, and they've been fantastic. They've done a bunch of the promotion for Bryce.
Indeed. And so, Bryce, before we've got to let you go, how are you doing almost 7 years later?
Doing good, doing good. I graduated high school. I caught up with my classes while I was in the hospital. So I graduated on time and with my set of friends, my original set of friends, and then was fortunate enough to go to attend undergrad at UC Santa Barbara. And there I majored in communications and minored in sport management. And now I'm a graduate student here, getting my master's degree in sport management at Texas A&M. So I'm still in love with the whole field of athletics and baseball and every sport that has a ball in it, pretty much. But yeah, so I'm doing good, and the nonprofit that I began, that's doing well. So everything's looking good.
Indeed. Richard, thank you. Bryce, thank you guys so much. God is good. And we really wanted to share this story because we want to let people know that God is still in the miracle working business, and that miracles do happen. The impossible, what seems impossible, to man is not impossible for God. So thank you guys so much. May God continue to bless your health and your foundation and all that you all will do. Thank you so much.
God bless. Thank you.
Indeed. Hey, everybody, stay with us. We're back right after this.